Hello, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. So I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And in this particular video, I really wanted to talk to you about analyzing data in any sort of, maybe it's research, maybe you're doing it for a job, maybe you are analyzing for an undergraduate degree of some sort. Maybe you're analyzing, looking at data for something, but you kind of get stuck and you can't figure out what's going on. In general, to be honest, actually analyzing data is always like that. It is always, there's never ever going to be a moment where everything sort of works and it becomes neat and tidy and everything like that. It's just really part of the process that nothing really works. The data process or analyzing data is really tricky and difficult to do. So this is part of actually my Nerd Out Wednesday series where I put videos out to help out people and where I can actually talk about things in science that are really, I think, are interesting. So I try to put them out every single Wednesday to help you out. And I could just be a total nerd. And this is one of them. And it's really, the question comes to how do you actually analyze data in research, or how do you actually analyze data for whatever? You have to, I've done this for years now. I've been analyzing data. I began as an engineer years and years ago. So I've probably been doing this for about 20 years at this moment of going into data and trying to make sense of things. And I'm learning slowly, and hopefully you will learn slowly as well. Hopefully you'll learn quickly by watching this video. But what you should do is, instead of jumping into the data set, whatever it is, if it's big data, small data sets, Excel, whatever it is, even if it's like 10 different observations, what you should do is think about what is the research question. So the first thing that you should always do, and this is going to really expedite your process when you do this, first thing you should always do is think about your research question. What is it that you're trying to ask? And if so, what is the thing that you're trying to ask? Is it important? Is this a critical thing that you should be doing? Once you get that down, once you figure out that research question, and it's really stinking simple, that you've solved 80 to 90% of your problem. That is the hardest part, and that's going to make your process, it's going to make everything go really quickly once you figure out what that is. And that takes a lot of time to figure that out, and there's actually a lot of iteration that happens over time. When I'm particularly trying to figure out what is the thing you're trying to solve. And so you're going to go through this process of trying to figure this down, sitting down, getting that question nailed down, and then you might analyze a little bit of data, then you go back and you have to nail down, try to figure out that research question, see if it fits, and it goes back and forth like that. There's a lot of that goes on, trying to refine exactly what the research question or that thing you're trying to do. And often, once you figure it out, it becomes really easy to analyze the data and becomes really clear to analyze the data. So the more time and the more thought that you can go through thinking about that particular thing that you're trying to solve, that research question, it's going to be much more easier to analyze data in any sort of thing after that. The second thing that you should do to keep in mind is you really want to begin with the end in mind. And I'm trying to get you to think about what is the sort of analytical chart or analytical table or diagram, figure, whatever you're trying to do. What does it actually look like in your mind before you actually go analyze that data? You have to go down and think about what that thing looks like and have it very clear before you actually do anything. That's going to really help you out. So having that end in mind, what you should do, and that's just what I've learned to do in the last, probably 3 or 4 years at this moment, and it's really expedited my analysis, and it's made it so much more easier for me to do things with this, is I will actually sketch out and draw a picture of the graph. I'll get a pencil and paper, and I'll probably spend a day, 2 days trying to figure out what this graph will look like in terms of, this is the ideal situation, this is what this is what I want to see when I get there. Once you have that, and very detailed exactly what that is, once you have that, then you can start to begin to tell a story about the data that you have. And that's really hard to get to. But once you have that sort of concise thing, you can answer questions really, really well. When you can answer the question, and it should match with that research question. It should be so intertwined that you can, if you found the result that you intend with that picture, that it would solve and resolve the research question that you have, or resolve the thing that you're analyzing. It should be that clear, and it should be really, really precise before you even jump there. So you're just imagining exactly what you want to see before you get there, because that's a really hard step. Because we often get kind of blinded. I mean, there's a whole bunch of behavioral research and stuff like that goes into why this happens. But basically, if you can sort of draw the thing before you get there, that you can actually solve the problem that you're trying to do. It's going to be much more easier to do that. So spending a lot more time and sort of having a clear picture of what you're trying to get to, that's going to solve your problem going forward. Then what you should do is try to always focus on something that is simple as possible, right? The key is to make sure that what you're doing is always simple. The graph that you're trying to do is always simple. Try to reduce it to as much as possible and reduce the complexity of the research question. Always go to something as simple as possible. That's going to really, really help you. And then finally, what you should do is then, at the very, what you should honestly do is plan everything out, write everything out before you actually go analyze the data. That's going to solve a lot of your problems before you actually analyze that data. I know it seems really, you want to get into the data. I've learned that from years of wasting my time with analyzing data, that is the wrong way of going about things. You should sit down and write it out before you actually get there. I'll actually even write out the results that I'm looking for before I even get there. And then once everything is all written up, I've written out the different limitations and just really had a really good understanding of what I'm trying to do. Then I will actually go analyze the data. And at that moment, the analyzing data is probably only 10% of the effort. It becomes much more easier than actually what you're trying to do. And what you're trying to do is just try to work yourself down into the moment where it's just, you literally are just plugging and playing, and you're just analyzing the one specific thing that you're trying to do. That's going to reduce the amount of effort. That's going to reduce the amount of whatever you're trying to do. It's going to just condense everything so much so that it's gonna make your job just wonderfully straightforward. I guarantee that's going to happen when you analyze that particular data. That's going to seem really simple once you go through all of the hard work at the beginning. It's going to become very, very easy to come up with the question. So here's the thing: even if you analyze the data and it doesn't look like your ideal picture, you actually have some really interesting insights, right, that you forgot or that you would never have understood until you actually had all of this stuff written up and then you jumped into it, right? So you have to have this sort of very clear understanding, because that clear understanding is usually what the literature is, usually what your knowledge is of how the world works. But then when you go and jump into the data, you start to realize that there's this, there's that. And it's really going to be the case that the picture is going to look identical to what you imagine it was going to be. And then what you're going to have to do is write down all of that information of why it differs. That's actually going to make things really robust, and it's going to make, oh, wow, there's all these different sort of insights and things like that you would never think about. Then you can actually maybe think about it again and sort of repeat the cycle and try to get a better research question, go through and have a better sort of, what your picture that you want to look at, the figure that you want to have, and with the end in mind. And then, sketching it out and going through and doing that one more time, that's going to really expedite the process. It's going to really help you. And you'll go through these cycles repeatedly over and over and over again until you have a very clear understanding, a clear picture of what you want. And it wasn't until I started doing this in the last probably 4 or 5 years, probably 4 years, that I started to really pick up the pace of my analysis, to pick up my pace of how much I write, all these kind of things. When I was actually kind of analyzing by jumping in the data, I was getting lost with what was going on, and I was kind of getting distracted with a lot of different things rather than just jumping into the precise thing I needed to do, and that was it. And it really does reduce the amount of effort you have to do, and it also is very, very you get a nice picture at the end. You usually get something that is much better than what you would have done by just jumping into the data and trying to make sense of it. So if you like this video, make sure you do an old thumbs up. Watch some of the other videos. I put out all sorts of stuff related to science, into research, into innovation, in writing, all sorts of stuff that you could be very interested in every single day. Try to do that at this moment for this year. It's my challenge to do this every single day. And that's it. Have a wonderful day. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.